Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
It hasn't changed in millions of years. But here we have a clue to an answer.
Hello, this is Nick Pope, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. And this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Thank you, Nick. I hope everyone's keeping well out there. And thank you for joining me on the show again. Now, today's guest is Professor Diana Pasulka. She's written a book called American Cosmic. So without further ado, let's meet Diana. Hello, Diana. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, it's been great. So welcome to Paranormal UK Radio Network, and it's been quite a while. We booked this show up, and it's like I was saying to you just before the show. It seems such a long time that I've sort of booked the show, and then it seems such a long time to wait for it, and then here we are. It sort of comes around sort of suddenly.
It does.
I think you even got confused last week, didn't you, when you were rushing out to take...
Yeah, that's right. I was like, wait, I'm supposed to be on the show, and I was panicked, and thankfully it was this week.
That's all right. It happens because you don't know what's going on, so I don't know where I am sometimes, so it's quite understandable.
Yeah.
Anyway, Diana, I'm not quite sure how many people know about you out there, but I know you are known as a professor of religious studies in North Carolina.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about that? So I know you've got a book also, which we can go into.
Sure, I can introduce myself to folks. I'm originally from California, and I'm out here as a professor of religious studies. And in religious studies, we don't do theology, so we're not really about practicing religion, but we are about basically studying religion as an academic discipline, and we don't promote any religion. So growing up in California, I was a graduate student during the .com boom, Silicon Valley, and so I learned a lot about how the digital infrastructure is going to change everything, and now I think we all know how that's happening. And so I wanted to look at that from a point of view of religious studies and how it changes religion. And I was looking at new types of religions, but my specialty is Catholic history. So I've written almost all of my books and articles and things like that on Catholic history. And then just about 2012, moved into studying people, the UFO phenomena and that type of thing as a new form of religion. And so I'm a full professor. I just stepped down as chair from the Department of Philosophy and Religion, and that's thankfully. I feel bad for the next chair because he has to deal with the COVID situation. But so now I'm writing books and teaching and teaching grad students and things like that.
Yeah, and you're a full-time mom too.
Yes, I am actually. Yes, I have 5 kids.
Wow. That should keep you busy.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy.
I'm surprised you find time to write books and everything else.
I know. I can't not write books, if that makes any sense. They sometimes just bother me until I write them. And so my kids understand. They have their own kinds of things that they do too. So we all have our, like, one of them likes to play music a lot, so she does that, and we have our own passions.
So you mentioned religion. Now, do you sort of encompass all types of religion? I know you mentioned the Catholic religion, but
Yes.
do you encompass all religions? And because I think they're all kind of basically the same, aren't they? But we have all these arguments and wars over religion all the time, and really everyone's sort of fighting for the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, so religion is, what we do in my field is it's very much like kind of like the medical field. It's a broad spectrum called religious studies. And you basically have, we are trained in basic religious traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, all of the basic religions. But then we have a specialty. And so my specialty has been European Catholic culture and American Catholic culture. And so that's what I've mostly studied in my time here. But, I'm familiar with, like I said, growing up where I did, I'm familiar with changes that the infrastructure makes upon religions too. Religions actually do change when their environments change. So, they're very much like other types of social phenomena. So yeah, that's what I do. And in terms of religions being all the same, I'm not sure. I mean, I know that people think that, and obviously religions, because they deal with big questions of ultimate meaning and things like that, they're somewhat like politics. So, when I have a class of students, I generally tell them, okay, we all know that religion is going to make us angry and upset at other people. So this is a zone of tolerance, and we have to be nice to each other and each other's differing views on religion, because there will be differing views. And so, that's, how I usually start the class.
Yeah. What I meant was everyone seems to think that their religion is the true religion, and they kind of really, most of the time, most religions won't listen to another person's side, will they? That's my understanding of it, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that does happen, but I think that there are religions like Hinduism is a good example, and indigenous American religion or spirituality, they like to call it spirituality, they're not out and they're not trying to convert other people. And they don't necessarily think their religion is the only way. Like in Hinduism, there are many paths to Brahman, and Native Americans don't even allow other people to convert to their religion or their spirituality. It's a cultural thing. So, I mean, I think that, people generally have an idea of religion based on what they know. And since there are a lot of Christians in the UK, and also, there are a lot of secularists in the UK, but, they came from usually a Christian background, a Protestant background. And so, their view of religion is basically that there is a God, and then, there perhaps are angels and things like that. And then, that's pretty much it. And, that's actually not how most religions function. A lot of religions have many gods and goddesses. Some religions have no God. Okay. So, I think that most of us are basically, predisposed to think about religion based on our own religions, but religion is actually a lot more varied than we are meant to think of it. So, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think about, I'm not particularly religious. I grew up, in London, and I did go to church when I was between something like 12 to maybe 15. And I actually became a member of the church. I had the catechism and all that sort of thing, which was the Christian religion, the Church of England. And suddenly I started thinking that maybe there was more to all of this. I still believe in spirit, and I'm probably more of a spiritualist more than anything else, which kind of encompasses everything, really, doesn't it? It's
Yeah, that's a huge trend toward a spirituality and sort of instead of dogma. So so that I think that a lot of people are actually spiritual, and even if they're secular, they're secular spiritual, and they believe in spirit and they believe in kind of goodness and truth and things like that. But they don't consider themselves from a religious tradition.
No, it's when I've actually seen and experienced spiritualism. I've seen evidence of spiritualism, so I suppose that's a lot of where it comes from. Maybe I'm not going into I'm not talking about ghosts and things. I mean the actual spirit, the feelings of spirit, and what it does to you, and how it can be uplifting and everything like that. But so so you actually do teach these religions? No, I know you mentioned more about the Catholic religion. Now, do you actually talk about the Vatican and the secrets of the Vatican and things like that?
Well, I mean, I basically teach students, I basically deprogram them if they're religious. I help them understand what, some of them are, say, let's take an example. Because I'm in the American South, a lot of people are Christian here, like Baptists or something like that. Yet, they've never actually read their Bible. So what I do is I say, let's take some time and read some of these, scriptures so you can understand, what basically your religion is about. And it's an eye-opening for them because none of them have actually done that before. And when they do that, they realize that their conceptions of religion were given to them through Sunday school, through a catechism, but they don't actually know it for themselves. And they see things in the Bible that they're surprised to see, right? There are a lot of very disturbing things in there. And so they read it and then they're like, wow, whoa, this is really amazing. And I didn't realize that Jesus was, say, a non-white person, and then I showed them the geography and where, the early Christians were, and that a lot of them were, African and things like that. And so that's very eye-opening to the students here. So it's pretty easy for me to actually teach them about that. Now, if they're business majors and they're going abroad, say to China or something, we teach them the, spiritual practices in China and things like that, so that they have a cultural literacy that they don't generally have. And in terms of spiritualism, I agree. I have a lot of friends who are spiritualists and who believe in spiritualism because they've seen evidence of it too. So I'm a fairly do I teach about, you asked me if I teach about the secrets of the Vatican archive in my classes?
Yeah. It's something that I think everyone finds interesting because I think we'd all like to get into the vaults of the Vatican to see what's in there.
Fascinating. Yeah, I had a great time there. So I did go, my journeys through my book, American Cosmic, which is about the beliefs of UFOs as a sort of religion, took me to the Vatican with a rocket scientist, basically. And we were because I am a Catholic, my background is Catholic. I have written about Catholic, and I'm a professor. I was allowed into the Vatican secret archive, so which basically it's called the segreto in Italian, just means private. So it's not necessarily secret; it's actually the Pope's private archive, but it's gigantic. I mean, it's huge, like miles long. And so you have to actually tell the archivists and the librarians there what you need a good time before it happens. So I actually told them a year before what I needed. And so when I got there, they'd already pulled it out because it's pretty difficult for them to find those things in their, their long hallways. And so, there's a nice place to sit, and I sat, and I was actually doing, a research project, which I'm still doing, and it's basically researching, the levitation of, a saint named Joseph of Cupertino, and then, Mary of Agreda, she's a Spanish saint. Well, she's actually not a saint yet, but there's a cause for canonization for her. And so I went through those, and I also went to what's called the Space Observatory. And a lot of people don't know that the Vatican owns two giant space observatories. One is in Rome, in Castel Gandolfo, which is above the Vatican, and that's where the popes go for their summer time. It's a summer residence, and it has a space observatory, which is a fairly old one. I think it was created in the 1800s, or maybe even before that. But they have telescopes in there, and they look up at the sky, and they have a giant archive and library of just space stuff, and they even have a section on the search for extraterrestrial life. And things like that. And I actually am an acquaintance and colleague of Brother Guy Consolmagno, who's the director of the observatory. he invited me to go. Actually, I asked him, I said, where do all this, does the Vatican have this was years ago. I said, does the Vatican have a certain library just for their space research? And he said, indeed we do. It's a whole library, and it's up in Castle Gandolfo. It's not even at the Vatican, and you're welcome to come and stay there. We have a scholar's residence. So I stayed at the scholar's residence, and the rocket scientist had his own little residence as well. And we both looked through everything that I could in the time frame. I had a week up there, and I spent almost all of the week there in the archive looking through everything I could, and it was fascinating.
Did they? Did you get any opinions as to about alien life and UFOs and things? And does the Pope believe in UFOs, for instance?
Okay, so I don't know if the Pope believes in UFOs, but I'd be surprised if he didn't. Let's put it that way. Because the Vatican has a long-standing record of searching for extraterrestrial life. That's what I found. And so there are, I found a lot, actually, David, when I was there. And one of the things that I found most interesting was that the search for extraterrestrial life has been going on for at least 1,000 years. With the Vatican. And so I looked through a lot of the old manuals, but they also had a lot of things that were interesting from the 60s and the 70s. And then what I noticed, and I took notes of, actually, because I thought this was interesting, was that in the 80s, the whole search for extraterrestrial life completely changed. And I took pictures of this right in the Vatican, not in the Vatican, but in the observatory archive. I looked and I said, wait a minute, all of the books prior and the manuscripts and the research prior to the 1980s, they were all funded by government agencies, right? So or even universities like Harvard University funded extraterrestrial research and things like that. And it was all very open and transparent, David. And so you could read what they found, and there's research studies and things like that. After the 1980s, it was always like, can we find intelligent life in the universe? That was the search, right? And it was actually not stigmatized. It was all very, very open, and, it was a legitimate question, I found, for researchers back then. And then after the 80s into the 90s and today, it's not, you don't use the word intelligent life anymore. It's basically, can we find bacteria, or can we find, bioorganisms or something like that? And so the language shifted, and then it was if you're going to do some type of, life on other planets search, you can't use the word intelligent extraterrestrial life. You have to use the language of the academy today, which is basically, can we find biosignatures and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds. I suppose it's more scientific to be looking for microbiology life rather than aliens. I presume. I think so. They're trying to take that stigma away from it, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so they can get the money for it. They can't say intelligent extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear a story. I don't know if it's true. Some years ago, that aliens actually visited the Vatican and visited the Pope. I don't know what your take is on that, but whether it could be true or not.
Well, I do talk about there's a secrecy within anything. First of all, what I found was that with people in the American space programs, there were secrets that they maintained, and a lot of them actually didn't have to maintain secrets because they never knew their own history. So, for example, I'll give you an example of this. When I started my research in 2012 and 2013, I first researched our space program, right? So the American space program and the Russian space program, because both of those are the most viable. At least, I mean, China is now, but at least back in the day, those were the most viable space programs. Those are the ones that were actually putting people into space. So with their rocket technologies and things like that. And what I found was that, when you scratch the surface of these space programs, you find these personalities like Jack Parsons. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've heard the name, yeah.
Yeah. Or, Tchaikovsky, Konstantin Tchaikovsky, and these people were incredibly spiritualists. Okay, they believed in intelligent extraterrestrial life, and they believed that they were in contact with it. Now we're talking about the founders of our space programs, and what they did was they felt like they were downloading rocket technologies from these beings. Okay, and so when I asked people that I knew, like astronauts or people within the space program, about this history, most of them didn't even know about it, even though the place where they go every day for work was named after Jack Parsons. And they didn't even know who he was or what he believed. So I began to call this a forgetting of the history. And it was almost like the rule. I don't know how many of your listeners have seen this 1999 like Brad Pitt movie, Fight Club. But within this movie, there are these rules of this engagement called Fight Club, and it's like you don't talk about it, right? And so what I did was I said, well, back in the day, people like Jacques Vallée and Paul Hynek, they talked about the invisible college of these scientists that don't talk about it, but they talk to each other. Well, nowadays people don't even talk to each other, David. So there's compartmentalization, and I called it the UFO Fight Club because the Vatican didn't speak of it. I was there at the Vatican, and there was an uncomfortableness about my research, so I didn't talk about it. I just wanted to do the research. I didn't want to get kicked out. And if I had gone and said, Brother Guy, can you please tell me if you believe in aliens? Or, I did speak to a papal advisor. If I said to that advisor, Father Gumpel, do you believe in aliens? I think that would have been a very that would have been a bad question to ask.
Yeah.
So, I minded my P's and Q's. That's a cliche we have here. I don't know if you have that there.
Yeah, we do.
But
it's probably an English phrase anyway.
Yeah, it probably is. So that's what we did. I did, at least. Tyler was a little more free than I was, but I'm the one that got us there. So I took the road of like, I want to come back. So I'd better be on my best behavior. But I did a lot of research. So and I do know that a lot of Catholics within and without the Vatican who are in the hierarchy do believe in non-human intelligent life. Yes, I do know that. Yeah. But I'm not going to name names because, they get enough flack.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can understand that.
The church already gets enough flack, so why give them more?
Yeah. I mean, I feel myself that we have been visited, and I think we've been visited for thousands of years. I mean, I'm quite a believer in the ancient alien theory that they've been here sort of all that time and maybe are still here. Don't know what your view is on that. Because I mean, even in the Bible we get all these stories that, and some of them you can actually relate them to UFO stories, can't you? Like
yes,
Ezekiel and things like that as an example.
Yes. So there are lots of biblical accounts and also what you would call accounts that are not within the Bible, that are Christian accounts like saints stories and things like that have what I found. In fact, this is what caused me to do the research in what I'm doing. Basically, I was writing a book on the Catholic dogma of purgatory, and I was looking at anecdotes from a long time ago, like the 1200s and the 1300s, and reading the original sources of them. And what I found was a lot of people were seeing aerial phenomena, and a lot of the aerial phenomena would also be accompanied by beings like beams of light, short beams of light, beings that people said glowed and spoke telepathically to them and things like that. And I thought, you have to understand that I was actually quite an atheist with respect to UFOs at that point, but I did think that was weird. In fact, it didn't even occur to me. This is how amazingly compartmentalized I was in 2012. It didn't even occur to me that these could be UFO things. So I wrote my book on purgatory. I published it with Oxford University Press, and it's out there, but I didn't include anything that had to do with UFOs. Then what happened was I showed those stories, which I kept a log of, to a friend of mine and a colleague, and I asked him, what do you think of this? I want to do something with it, but I don't really know how to frame it. And he said, well, this looks like UFO events. It looks like Steven Spielberg's movies. And at first I thought he was crazy, but after that I started to attend conferences with known experiencers like Christopher Bledsoe, who actually lives very close to me. And I realized, wow, these look really, so I went through the whole Bible again. I went through my whole history of these kinds of things. And, I have to say that I was quite shocked, and then completely turned around in my thinking about the whole, topic of extraterrestrials and things like that. So as far as I'm concerned, let's put it this way, whatever we call these things, if we call them advanced technology, UFOs, or angels, and that kind of thing, angels and demons and that kind of thing, we're talking about a very similar phenomena that's been happening for a long time. And so I agree with that, but what it is, I don't know. I mean, I can't say, oh yeah, they're definitely angels, or I can't say, because we don't even know what an angel is. If you look at angel accounts in the Bible and you look at angel accounts in the history of Christianity and even in other religions, they're all so different that you can't necessarily say there is this group of non-human intelligent things that we call angels. Angel accounts are also very scary and terrifying a lot of times,
Yeah.
Look what happened to Jacob. They dislocated his hip in the Old Testament Hebrew Bible. So you look at that and you're like, and then you look at modern day UFO accounts, some of which are wonderful and some of which are not, right? And so you begin to see, just like Jacques Vallée did with his Passport to Magonia book, which he wrote in 1968, you begin to see, wow, this is a continuous tradition. But, to call it a certain thing like aliens or ancient aliens, or, do we really know that they're from other planets? I know that people make claims like that. But I can't say from an academic perspective, yes or no. I have private beliefs about it from, that are my own opinion, and they don't reflect, say, Oxford or my university, but, those are just opinions. But I can share what my opinions are.
The way I look at it, there's so many billions of planets out there that there's got to be planets out there with life on. There's got to be, and they could be possibly millions of years in advance of us. So there's no reason why they can't be visiting. That's kind of the way I look at it. But I also believe that there are different dimensions of existence as well, which is kind of where the spiritualism part of it comes into being.
Yes. That's what I believe. Yeah.
I mean, a few years ago, I couldn't see any connections between UFOs and spirit and ghosts and everything else. But over the past few years, I've actually become kind of an understanding that I think this is what we're looking at a lot of the time, that a lot of it's connected.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that there are different dimensions, and I think that they coexist with us here. And I think that what happens is sometimes there's a break in that, and we're visited, right? And sometimes, interacted with. And then, cause if you look at the way some of that quote unquote craft work, right? A lot of times they just disappear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they reappear somewhere else. I mean, what kind of thing can do that, right? Maybe it's a really sophisticated cloaking device. I don't know. And I do know that our own technologies, military technologies, are unknown to us at this point. Right? So we can't leave that off the table either. So I think that a lot of just, normal people who aren't military, like me, or like you, we have our opinions and about it, but, to get kind of like hard and fast knowledge about it is hard. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I would think even most of the military wouldn't know about it. It's only the top echelons that have all the secrets, I would think, tucked away.
I do believe that. Yeah, I think that's true.
I mean, do you believe that? I don't even think that. I think that knowledge is even hidden from your president and our prime minister, and I think there's a higher type of government that's controlling everything anyway. That's my belief. That sort of branches into like secret societies that really run the world anyway.
Yes, I believe that too. I mean, let's put it this way. I have met people who've claimed to be a part of secret societies, and they have told me things that I wish they didn't tell me because they were so depressing. And so, I think that, I think that these also have to do with this phenomena. And so my last book basically was opening the door to the compartmentalization here in my government in the United States. And then the second book that I'm writing now, which I'm hoping to call The Language of Angels, which is a book about the history and also the contemporary secret society alien link type thing. And that is my agent wants me to change the name, but your own John Dee. I don't know if you know about him. John Dee.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
So John Dee, I think, oh gosh, I always get these dates wrong because I read them and then they go out of my head. But he was either, I think it was 16th century or 17th century. I believe 16th century. And what he did was he was a mathematician who was also working with a medium. And so the medium would basically channel what he believed to be Enochian or Enochian angels. And then John Dee would write down their language and try to figure out their language. And what he did, believe it or not, David, was he created a system of what he called a British systematic, what would you call it? Kind of like a cultural outreach, which today people would call like an imperialism, right? And so, and he was, he gave this to the Queen at the time, and forgive me again if I don't get this right, but I believe it was Queen Elizabeth. And so he gave it to Queen Elizabeth, and then they worked out this kind of, way of, like kind of like a world domination type thing, through this type of work. And so that's actually still in play today. And people have a lineage back to that very process. And so that's what I'm doing today is I'm talking about people today that view their lineage back to kind of like your government.
yeah, I can fully agree. Like you're following the bloodlines, really, which goes right back to the middle of Europe, doesn't it? Really?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So that's what I'm doing, and it's been a weirder ride than, or I'm sorry, but you guys use the word lift. It's been a weirder trip. Let's put it that way, than the last book. So the last book was pretty weird for me. This book is even weirder, and the research involved is even weirder than that. So yeah, and so that's what I'm doing right now. So I agree with you that there are aspects of the government that are absolutely not transparent. And I think today, if we, like, let's take my mother as an example. She watches CNN, the news, and she believes it. And I say, Mom, you know that all the news is skewed and owned and this and that, but she won't believe me.
Yeah. Well, I used to watch CNN quite a lot, actually, over here. We get it over here as well on our Sky channel. But I've come to believe that CNN tells probably don't sue me, but they don't tell the truth a lot of the time, much like many of our news channels. It's
that's right.
And I think you're saying the same thing as I do. They give you a perverted account of something which don't quite tell the truth. I mean, I've seen that actually when you've seen videos, even of Donald Trump saying something, and they'll cut the end off of it, so they don't actually give the exact truth of what he said.
That's exactly right. Yes. So, I mean, to not understand that today is, I think, folly, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. We've got the same problem with our Sky channels, and even the respected BBC, I don't believe, tells the truth a lot of the time. I think they sort of, because from what I understand, all of those channels, they're all controlled by really one corporation, or one or two corporations, which goes back to the Soros Corporation.
Yep. Yeah. So it's really quite frightening.
Yeah, because they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, basically.
That's right. So how do we get any kind of truth now? I think that people have to, I think a lot of times what happens is a person will take a video of an event, post it on one of the social media sites, and you have to look at it before the social media sites take it down.
Yeah.
Because the social media sites are very, very interested in controlling what we see. And so, it's almost like this game of how fast can you see it before somebody, records it, and somebody's going to record it, take it down, and that's our only hope of knowing what's going on, I think, right now, and word of mouth.
So much for free speech in the Western world, eh? Yeah, that's the way I look at it. You know, it's things are actually being denied us, and we're being denied our opinions in a lot of things, you know. And we're only allowed to hear one side of something. That's the way it seems to me, even more so over the last couple of years.
It was absolutely true. And, you know, it's a breakdown of any kind of principle of democracy if one believed that we ever had democracy. You know, it's kind of like if there was a hope of democracy, I think that hope is shattered through, you know, just being controlled by social media now through COVID. Look, none of us can go out. We're forced to be, those of us who work are forced to be online now, even if we didn't want to be online, right? So, there's no going off the grid anymore. We're all on the grid, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that's true. And when you think that the whole world's being controlled, where 99.99% of the people are not catching or being affected by the COVID virus or coronavirus, as they keep calling it now, so much. You know, I don't know if it's happening in the US more so now. They don't sort of mention COVID-19 so much now. It's more coronavirus, which is all sorts of common colds.
Yes. I know. It doesn't matter whether or not it exists or not. The effects of it are that we can't go outside. You know, we do this, we do that. So there's you know, I know in Australia, I have some friends in Australia, they can't actually, in Victoria at least, they can't leave their state. They only can go 3 miles away. And then the police come by their houses and knock on their doors and make sure that they're inside and things like that. Like, I think only one person at a time can leave, which is extraordinary, you know? It's an extraordinary amount of control there. Yeah,
it's crazy. To me, it seems like an experiment in a police state sort of type of thing. You know, like they're trying that as a lockdown scenario to try on the rest of us later on. Maybe they thought that the Australians will be an easier ride than maybe they'll get here, or the US, for instance.
Right. Well, see, what we had were, you know, we had like eruptions of violence all over the place.
I know. I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So even people in the UK were protesting Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Well, it's still going on, isn't it? Really, you're still getting problems in a lot of your cities, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We have problems. Well, also, you have to understand that now we in the United States, we're going back to schools. So all the students are going back to schools, some of which are open and some of which are not, but all online. And so in my university, we have people going to school in person and people taking their courses online. So, and a lot of our universities are just going online completely.
Yeah, I hear quite a few scary stories about what if Joe Biden gets in, he's going to have all the guns taken away from everywhere. And I can see a very dangerous situation if that comes, because there's a lot of Americans that will not allow that.
No, you know. Americans, I don't think are going to allow that, to tell you the truth. If that happens, I agree with you. That's when I moved to Canada.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're almost talking about a civil war situation, aren't you?
Yeah. You know. I think, take away Americans' guns and yes, you're right.
And I agree with that amendment, actually. I mean, if I was American, or if I was living in America, I'd probably own my guns myself. And I would not want somebody coming and taking it away from me. It's your right to bear arms, you know. Whether some people listening to this may agree with it or not, you know, it is a right that I imagine we would have that same thing here, but the fact that because we're an older civilization, if you like, in England, you know, those rights were taken away from us many years ago. But of course, when your country was new and everyone was coming from Europe, it was the age of the weapon, wasn't it? The firearm. So, or maybe a little bit before that, but your nation grew up with guns. So I can understand exactly where it came from, you know.
Yes, absolutely. And also we had the right to protest our government, you know. That's all written into the Constitution. So it's kind of interesting when people say, oh, that's not constitutional. Well, if you look at the founding document, a lot of what we do is not constitutional now.
Sure.
But I I think what's going to happen, David, is they're going to take it in stages. So first they're going to take the big guns, right? The guns that are made to actually kill people.
Yeah.
And they're going to take those away, and then they're going to say, well, you can keep these little guns that, you may need to shoot.
Well, I've got to say, I don't really see why people need to have assault weapons, to be honest. I've got to say,
Oh, right. Well, in the South, they have assault weapons. You can see, I don't know if you have billboards there. When you go down the street, you see the billboards. Well, a lot of my friends from the UK will come and visit, and we'll go down the street, and they'll say, there's a billboard for an assault weapon? And I say, yes. Welcome to the United States.
Yeah. I mean, I can fully understand having rifles and pistols and things like that, but when it comes to an assault weapon, they're so deadly and can cause so much damage. And why do people need an assault weapon unless they're going to be standing up against a government that's going to turn on them at some time? I suppose that comes into it. But it's a very tricky situation. It's a tricky question, isn't it? Really?
Yes, it is, definitely. Yeah.
But, anyway, we've gone off to a sort of a paranormal path a little bit there. Well, let's talk about your spiritual side. I mean, do you actually believe in ghosts and things like that?
Well, okay, so I don't know. I've not seen a ghost. I have had paranormal experiences, and I have had dreams, like precognitive type experiences. And I also have had, I did have, some people call this like the shadowed, when you see a shadow person or something like that.
Yeah.
When I was very young, I was about 21 or so, I lived on the West Coast, like I said, of the United States. And, I was going to go to San Jose, and I lived in Santa Cruz, and I had, it was about a 40-minute trip in my car, and I had to go over this mountain road. And before I got in my car, I saw a distinct shadow, dark shadow, basically hovering above the left side of my car. And I got a pretty eerie feeling, and I thought, I have no clue what that is. So, being kind of, a stupid young kid, I get in my car and I go, and I basically had a horrific wreck up on the top of the mountain that would have killed me or somebody else, because it was a 2-lane highway. And so I felt like that was almost like either the Grim Reaper, or it was like the shadow of death or something like that was warning me that it was around. That's honestly how I feel about it now when I look back.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was a warning. It could have. We spoke about interdimensional beings. It could have been something like that as well.
I know. I mean, it was definitely something I saw. There's no, two ways about it. And I was a kid who was I was taking science classes, and I was a pre-medical major, so I didn't actually believe in things like that. But I saw it, and it gave me a kind of goosebump feeling. And I got in the car, and I won't deny that was a time when I could have died, or somebody could have died. I was rescued by a woman who comes up in her car, and she opens the door, and she has a kid in her car in the back in a strappy seat. And so she says, get in the car. So I got in her car, and I mean, we were very close to being hit. And so we got in her car, and she drove about a mile down and drove off to the side of the road into a mountain town. And she said, we're going to call I don't know if you have these people, but they're called highway angels. And they basically, if there are these kinds of wrecks, these people come with their trucks, tow trucks, and they tow your car off the highway, and they kind of rescue you. Oh, so we called them highway angels.
Not AAA.
No. Well, there is AAA, but I didn't have it. And so she called me a highway angel. And then when the highway angel person got there, she left. She was an angel too, as far as I was concerned. And so he came, and he looked at it, and he said, wow, he goes, I can't believe you survived that. And so he took my car off, and that was the story. But I mean, it was a horrific situation up about, we have like really tall mountains in California. So I don't know how high it was, but it was very, I'm talking, I don't know, like 7,000 feet or something like that. And straight down a cliff.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, from LA, you can see some quite high mountains along there, can't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you survived that, and that's pretty lucky. But as I say, it must have been pretty scary as well.
It was really scary, and it made a huge impression on me. And so when people tell me now that they see these things, some people don't believe them. But yeah. I've seen one, and I believe people when they tell me. That's another thing is that, a lot of times people dismiss people, the stigma attached to paranormal things. And I've met so many people who are legitimate and would never want their name associated with the story they tell that I know that these stories are common, actually. So I think the paranormal is as common as, living, basically. I think it's been with us. It's not going to go anywhere. And people have these experiences, and it's time for us to explore what they mean and what they are about. To tell you the truth, David, I think that, we talk about the elite and the elite bloodlines and things like that. I have a feeling that they've been, just like John Dee, they've been using the paranormal to their advantage for a long time. Yeah. And it actually helps them. And so they have a stake in keeping the stigma alive that the paranormal does not work for people, or that people don't get, valid information through it or something like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's being denied us that, because there's certain things in foods nowadays. Apparently, some of the chemicals in food stop us actually reaching our, if you like, the third eye.
Right.
Yeah. So our third eye is basically hidden from us.
Isn't that interesting?
Because of these foods, yeah.
Right. So I thought it was in my book on the American Cosmic book, I go through an elite basically that I've met, and he works at the space program in the United States, and he eats really, really well and healthy, and he has a physical protocol, which I thought was super interesting and needed to be told to people so that if they wanted to do that with their own lives and, kind of like become more open to getting information like this, because he would receive a lot of information that would help him and create companies and things like that. And he would use this physical protocol, which was very monastic in a sense. And I put that in my book as well so that people would know that this is what a lot of the elites are doing, Yeah.
Well, I think sugar is one of the biggest, I wouldn't call it poison, but I think it's one of the things that, because they put so much sugar in most of the foods, and I think that's one of the things that kind of stops our knowledge, if you like.
I would have to agree with you there. Yes.
Yeah, and then they've also got replacement sugars now, which do the same thing. So they're saying that it hasn't got sugar in it, but this other stuff that's in it, so it's still nice and sweet, so it's still good for you. But it's still stopping you getting that knowledge. But
yeah.
So that's all in your book, American Cosmic, is it? A lot of that, what you've said.
Yes.
I'll have to get. I have to be honest. I haven't got that book, but it's making me want to get it. I'll have to get it now.
You should. It basically talks about the beginnings of our own space programs and how people are still enacting the paranormal in the space programs, and how most of the people in the space programs don't know that, because it's happening at a level in which people aren't supposed to talk about it. Sure. And also the people that are doing it are enacting physical protocols in their daily lives to be super healthy. Right. I mean, they sleep a lot, and they only eat they cut out sugar, just like you say. And they also get sunshine when it's out. And so, what they're doing is they're basically creating their bodies as antennas.
I was about to say that when you talk about technologies, now if we go back to the Roswell incident, I don't know what your beliefs are in the Roswell incident, whether a UFO crashed or not, and the reverse engineering, is that kind of where you're referring to?
Okay, so in the beginning of my book, remember I start my book out as an atheist with respect to UFO events and paranormal things and things like that. And by the end of the book, I'm an agnostic about it. I'm like, wow, okay, I know it exists, but what is it, kind of thing. And then in my next book, it'll be even a different position. So in the American Cosmic, I begin by having a person who has worked for the space program all of his life. His name is Tyler. And Tyler D is what I call him as a pseudonym. And it's a reference to Tyler Durden in Fight Club. because we don't talk about it, right? And so he asked me if I would go visit a UFO crash site, and this crash happened between like 1945 and 1948, and apparently there were like between 7 and 8 of these crashes during that time, all within New Mexico and Nevada. Yeah. So I told him that I'd go if I could take my scientist friend, who's at a top 5 university here. And so, he agreed eventually. And so, but we had to be blindfolded to go out there. And it occurred within like a no-fly zone. And so we were in this car with him, and he drove, and my friend James and we were blindfolded, and we went out there, and we did indeed find a UFO crash site with these kinds of anomalous materials, basically is what I'd call them. And so that's how my book opens, and from there I go on to kind of being pretty surprised at what happens next. So those are the kinds of things I study. Now, this wasn't Roswell. This was not Area 51, okay? It was, though, it was an area that people don't go to, and you have to get special permission, and it's owned by the government.
I see. I know there's several. There's Sicaro. There's a few other places I can't think of offhand. Stanton Friedman. Did you ever meet him by any chance? Because he did
Yeah, he's great. He was a wonderful person. Yes, I met him.
Yeah, I met him once too. He's an amazing man. There's quite a big loss to the UFO community, of course. But he did quite a lot of research into Roswell and all sorts of other things. But I don't know what your thoughts on. Or do you actually think that something crashed at Roswell?
Okay, so Roswell or the UFO crash sites?
I see where you're going. Yeah, there's several, aren't there? Oh, did you actually keep any materials that you picked up?
Heck no.
Right. Well, you're not allowed to, or?
No, I'm just telling the truth. I wouldn't keep them if I could keep them safely. No, I don't have those materials. I saw them, I touched them, but I never wanted to keep them, and I don't have them. And, in terms of, do I believe, I believe there's something going on there, yes. I also believe Annie Jacobson is an investigative reporter who also wrote a book on Area 51. And she basically says that there are a lot of, like, experimental types of things happening there, that have to do with weapons and things like that. And I believe that.
Yeah, sure.
Could alien crashes and the creation of these weapons coexist? Of course. Of course. It's not one or the other, okay? So the thing is that, are they linked? Probably. I don't know. I'm not going to say for sure, okay? I don't know. I'm not going to give out information that I don't know absolutely. So, but I will say that in my own opinion that there were certain strange things happened in the 1940s. Did we come into contact with non-human intelligence, or intelligence that are basically us, that are like other forms of human intelligence that we're just not connected to? Maybe that happened too. I'm open to that as well. In fact, I kind of lean in that direction. Because I know a lot about science right now because of my affiliation with James, who does a lot of work on the brain and cognition and anomalous cognition. And I'm beginning to see that, with SRI, this is another strange occurrence. So when I started doing the research, a lot of things like synchronicity started to happen. And they really floored me. At one point, I realized that almost everybody I was meeting and coming into contact with at one point worked for the SRI. Do you know what that is? Stanford Research Institute.
Right, yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. So the SRI is this place almost like a think tank for people who study anomalous cognition. And so I began to then just basically read everything that they, basically talk to them, read everything they've written, and get up to speed on the whole history of learning about anomalous cognition. And now all of us have the capability for this type of thing. But some people are like what I would call like, I don't know if you know who Michael Jordan is. He's this amazing basketball player, and he's like a superhuman basketball player. Only some people are the Michael Jordans of anomalous cognition. And so I hope you see where I'm going with this. It's like, so a lot of times those people are picked out from, because now the government has all of our genetic material, right?
Yeah,
they can identify.
It's going that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are all these, find out your ancestry.com. Just give us your genetics and we'll figure it out for you. I'm like, gosh, how obvious can it get? People, right? Come on. So this is happening. So what, do I believe? I believe that there's a lot of advanced technology being developed in those areas. Obviously, does it have to do with non-human intelligence? That's the question that I'm going to explore.
I must say that when you were touching that, from the crash sites, for instance, I think most people I know would cut their right arm off to have touched a piece of that and keep a piece of it, including myself probably. Did it feel different or anything else? Yeah, to like normal things.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences. So the thing is that like a lot of people then began to explain to me that those things were studying us as we were studying them, that they were not normal types of materials. They were like, they somehow had their own consciousness, or they were like what my friend who's a scientist would call a quantum object. Okay, a quantum object, which means, I guess, that it has kind of like an interdimensional existence, which I thought was something that was really difficult for me to understand. Now, was I excited? I was numb. So when I went there, it was such a very strange experience and quite outside of my normal experiences as kind of a boring professor mom person that I was like, is this really happening to me? And so I was numb. In fact, Tyler said, do you know how amazed people would be sitting here right now where you're at doing what you're doing? And I understood what he said to me, but I didn't experience what he said to me. Like, I understood it on an intellectual level, but at that time, I knew what I was looking at. We had special metal detectors that he used, right, to kind of configure. And I was like, I'm being either set up. I didn't know if I was being set up or if I was being educated or what. David, I have to tell you, it was all so strange to me. And now that I better understand intelligence communities and the rules of engagement and that type of thing, I think that I was lucky that I didn't want those pieces. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I don't want those pieces. The scientists who are studying them, God bless them, but the whole thing is, there's secrets for a reason. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I can imagine you might feel in danger if you've got a piece of that somebody might want it and would go to any lengths to get it. I can see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I don't have it. I don't want it. I don't even know where it's at.
But there must be a fair bit of it out there anyway.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who post what they have online. I think I forgot his first name, but Mr. Wade, W-A-D-E, on YouTube. He has some stuff that looks similar to some of the stuff that I had seen, and it looks kind of like a frog skin, like metallic frog skin.
Right.
That's all bunched up. And he's got some, and you can, is his name David Wade? I can't remember what his first name is.
His name's not Warren, is it? No, sorry, I won't go there.
No, right, yeah. So yeah, go. I think a lot of people, do find it, and I do think that it's not controllable really, because these things kind of, if they crash, then they are most likely crashing now. I would believe, but I could very well be wrong. So they're around now, that's for sure. Yeah.
I believe that lightning and thunder seems to affect them. So I've heard in the past, and our radar systems. That's what I've heard in the past. But whether it's true or not, I don't know. But
well, yeah, I think so. So I do know that I met a few times Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, before he passed away, and he told me a lot about. He believed that, I just asked him, I felt this is my time to speak to this man, and I'm going to ask him everything I can before, he speaks to somebody else. So basically I asked him, why do you, cause he believed that, there were aliens and non-human intelligence that were interfering with our own rockets and missiles being sent up into space and things like that. And he said that they're doing that because it also affects them, and that they're also trying to help us and things like that. And I said, because I also knew that he believed in many different types of extraterrestrial intelligences. And I said, do you think all of them are like that? And he said, no, not at all. He said there were some that were not, they were not good. They were bad, and they were kind of like nefarious toward humans. And there were others that were protecting us. And he then said to me, what you have to do is you have to get in touch with the ones that are in contact with you. And of course, I didn't know I was in contact with any, so I let that one go and settle. But, he had a lot to say about what he believed, and of course he did some psychic experiments when he went up in space to the moon.
Yeah. Did he actually say he saw any UFOs or alien life, or?
To me, he did not say that, but he said that he knows that they exist, and
so
that
obviously you got the impression that he may have sort of seen something.
Yes. I was also told that astronauts have to sign non-disclosure agreements, right? So.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I've heard that, several of the space flights, even the Apollo 11 landing, they were actually being watched on the way, but unfortunately, because of where we are, we don't really know what's the truth anyway, do we? We can just go by the stories we hear. But it's very interesting that Edgar Mitchell, though, said things like that to you.
Oh yeah, well, I invited him to a small conference I was giving of academics, and they were always they asked him a lot of things like that I thought were not pertinent. I mean, we were there to study about UFOs and UFO events and extraterrestrial intelligence and stuff like that. And so basically, I asked him everything I could, right, about that topic. So other people were asking him, did they think that, climate change was going to kill the world and that kind of thing, which of course is a valid question and very important. But he's not a climate change scientist.
No.
He's an astronaut who was part of the SRI as well. And so I wanted to know specifically what he knew about that topic.
Sure, yeah. I mean, as for climate change, I mean, this planet's undergone different climates for as long as it's existed. Yeah, we've had ice ages and floods and God knows what else.
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily man-made, is it?
Yeah. No. I mean, the thing is that we've had extinction events before. Whether or not we're heading into one, I think that we've got the smarts to create habitats for ourselves such that it doesn't hurt us. And, but, who knows? I mean, if a meteor hits us, what are we going to do about that, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot we can do about it at the moment. I mean, whether they'd use a nuclear weapon or something, I know we're going into the realms of science fiction and movies and everything now, but I suppose it's a possibility.
No. I have a friend who, I think I could tell his name. He's a good guy. He's at, aerospace, and his name is Martin Lowe. And he discovered the supergalactic highway, which, he's using that information in order to help our space program, if meteors do come towards us, to actually do exactly what you said, blow them up before they hit us, basically.
Well, that's all we could do, isn't it? That's the only thing we could attempt, really, to try and throw it off course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, sorry, go on, carry on.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think we can. Judging from the people I've talked to, that's exactly what we're hoping to do, and I think we can do that too.
Yeah, sure. I don't see any reason why not. I mean, we've got missiles and things, and no reason why we can't fire it into space and break up a meteor or a comet. Well, I don't know about a comet, they're a bit bigger, aren't they? But yeah, anyway, Diane, it's been so interesting speaking to you, and your book, we'll definitely put it on the Paranormal Dimensions site, and obviously hope that people might would like to pick it up. I certainly want to get a copy of it.
Thank you so much, David.
And your next book, The Language of Angels, or you might change the title.
Yes, I might change it, but I do have a website called AmericanCosmic.com.
Right, okay, yeah, and I'll put a link to that on it as well. And, and hopefully you'll get some more sales out of it, and hopefully raise some more interest over here. But it's been fascinating talking to you, Dinah, and thank you for
thank you.
sparing the time to come on and speak to me in your busy scheduled life. I know it's was it about midday over there now? Is it almost?
Yes, it is. It is midday actually.
Yeah, it's just getting on for the evening here. So
we'll have a nice evening.
I understand you've got a storm heading in.
Yes, we do. Another one. We're on the coast, so we get the hurricanes.
I know, yeah. Keep your head down, and hope it doesn't affect you too much.
Me too.
Anyway, Dinah, thank you so much for coming on, and it's been great talking to you. And maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Would love to.
That's lovely.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Dinah. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young. Hope you'll join us again next week. Thank you. Goodbye. Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.